This this is truly the proverbial calm before the storm. We're supposed to have, if not hurricane force winds, really strong ones, 60 mile an hour this evening, perhaps. And as the calm before the storm is is lovely, and it's 45 degrees. It's raining a little bit, so I'm going to hope that it doesn't obscure the mess with the camera at all. You may argue that anything that obscures me to a small degree is perhaps not the worst outcome generally. But that's, we're going to just power through it. Whatever happens. So this forsaken expertise, forsaken knowledge. This is something that, runs all the way through the Donald J. Trump experience. And why? It's like everything in life. It's a lot of reasons. There's the Project 2025 part of the argument, where they want to destroy institutions. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but they want to eliminate all accountability. I think I've done a number of chats about various different ways, different phraseology on accountability, and that's something that will persist as long as Trump is there, because he doesn't believe that he's accountable to anyone except himself. And in fact, he has made some of the most batshit comments I've ever heard around soldiers in harm's way, where he says, I had a feeling that they were going to invade, so I had to do something. It's just the way that I felt. Now, the great military genius that is Donald J. Trump, right? Commander Cankles of the 5 or 6 or 7 or more medical deferments, and surrounding himself by the best of the best. Where does he reach? I mean, you think of the gentlemen that have been involved in Trump 1.0, General Milley, and just the list goes on and on. You can, when you're the president or a senior member of any administration, you can get the best and the brightest. Sounds like Top Gun, right? Those are the ones that are going to Miramar. This is it is fact throughout history. When FDR needed the best of the best, when Truman, when JFK, you make the call and patriots will come running. We're in a tough spot. We are at risk of losing more young American lives because of some mistakes we made going in. That would be humility. The opposite of that, of course, is hubris. And hubris could be a very apt t-shirt for the Trump 2.0, 1.0 too, but that's ancient history. We're not looking back at mistakes from the last decade, except that he never took Russian language study, which would have made things probably a little bit more efficient for old DJT. But, think about him. He can't even speak Spanish. He's not going to learn Russian because that's actually complicated. But I digress. What are we learning about their decision, because it's a choice, to run away from expertise? I mean, we see it. Look at the elite colleges and universities. It's so many different levels. Donald Trump is, grievances against, the Supreme Court justices, except for Amy Coney Barrett, all went to law school at either Yale or Harvard, right? Um, uh, elite institutions are elite for a reason. They don't have all the answers, but they have the best professors and you have the best opportunity. And then he turns around and his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who he himself attended Princeton. No idea of how whether he was drinking or studying. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm a much older man than Pistol Pete Hegseth. But he chose an elite educational institution, as did Donald J. Trump. Now, did Fred buy Donald's way into Wharton, much as Jared Kushner's father bought his way into Harvard? I don't know these things, and it's backward. It's looking backwards without the opportunity to learn anything, because they're spoiled pricks that got plenty of advantages. All we know is in this moment, the Department of Defense, when they're in the shit, they are saying by the edict of Pete Hegseth is that they are no longer going to be sponsoring continuing education programs at any elite universities for military brass, senior leaders. That's a ridiculous idea. Now, if they all went to West Point for their postgraduate work, that would be fine. But diversity is DEI, and diversity generally benefits an organization like the Pentagon, just as it does any company, just as it does any university. And it's diversity of opinion. It's diversity of experience and where people come from. And yes, it's people from Asian people from Asia, African American people from the United States and otherwise. It's Irish American, Italian, anyone. The way that you learn, the beauty of a university is you exchange ideas with people unlike those you grew up with, right? And that trickles down. Think about the Defense Department and the Pentagon when Pete Hegseth affirmatively fired black and brown and female senior leaders because they were black and brown and senior leaders, just for that reason, not because they had poor performance reviews. No, it's because of their color or their gender they were fired. So, and then what you do is you add up all the years. If you're a general officer, you were sometimes there for 32 plus years or some number in experiences, traveling around the world, learning different languages and how different militaries approach different problems. Invaluable. And what Pistol Pete Hegseth did in the mold of Donald Trump and the drumbeat of Project 2025 is strip out. There's an antagonism against smart people. That sounds like a snide oversimplification of what's going on. But let's keep it simple then. What's the motivation? Donald Trump doesn't like to be shown up, right? So he wants to be able to believe. He'll always think that he's the smartest guy in the room because he's wired that way. And I am down with self-confidence. That idea of having a well-founded, high self-opinion, being confident, being able to project that confidence to others as a business leader, as a military leader, it's important. It's an essential element of leadership, right? Confidence. But Trump wants to. We've all seen the staff meetings, right? We've all seen the Oval Office meet and greets, while people just take their turn going around the circle and telling Trump about what an amazing fucking guy he is. Mr. President, you've never looked more handsome in your entire life. And that was a brilliant idea, sir. I would like to, I would like to record this for posterity's sake, because I know that generations down the line, leaders 100 years from now will benefit from your wisdom, sir, because that was absolutely, you know. So we've got a lot of that. So there's a lot of fluffing going on, but it's not intelligence. It's not experience. It's not leading from a position of strength. Everything that they do is antithetical to progress and high performing teams. Another great example is how Donald J. Trump, just take another acronym that if I needed to have one T-shirt and wear only one T-shirt for the rest of my life, it wouldn't, should it have Mick Jagger's picture on it? Maybe, you could argue that, but I would have a DEI T-shirt, #DEI, because, or it should say, ask me about DEI. And they look at me and they're like, okay, Cracker. Now, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but what the fuck, what do you know about DEI? You're some, middle-aged white dude who maybe went to school for too many years. So what do you know about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Well, I'll tell you. In organizations, it's indispensable. Every element of that not too complicated three-word or three-letter acronym. Another one is ESG. It makes the MAGA folks and the people that pay them a lot of money crazy, because what oil execs hear when they hear ESG is that, oh no, you mean we got to worry about the environment? Jesus, I don't understand. We're making money. We're extracting as much oil as we possibly, those kind of people. Those are the ones that put money into Donald J. Trump's campaigns, send money to Donald J. Trump's children's trust fund, essentially, their businesses, right? The big oil companies. They want to be able to do what Donald J. Trump promised, which is drill, baby, drill, until the end of time. And as we've discussed before on other pods, one of the greatest disservices, besides underutilizing the Department of Defense and emasculating the Department of Justice, one of the greatest sins being committed by the Trump administration is green energy, right? And we've talked around the edges of this on different subjects on other podcasts. But while we're standing still, which means moving backwards, if you're standing still these days on green energy, you might as well turn around and sprint in the opposite direction, because everybody else in the world is moving forward, and China is moving forward with alacrity, fast, full speed, right? They're sprinting because they know what time it is. They see what DJT is doing, and that's giving them chips. We're treading water with chips, but on energy, they can lap us because we're going backwards, they're going forward faster, and by the time we turn things around and repair all the damage, which is a theme I'm going to get right back to, is it's not, there's opportunity cost, you know, not a big word, but missed opportunity, right? My opportunity cost. What does that cost you to have, right? Not struck while the iron was at least lukewarm. It is Elon, all of the companies that are experimenting with making batteries better, all of the companies that are doing solar and wind and others. Trump has emasculated all research around wind, solar, battery, and everything related to that. He has that unproductive relationship with the Chinese about the um, the rare earth minerals. I mean, that was part of the Greenland debacle, right? In Davos, which was, oh, we're taking Greenland because they have a lot of rare earth minerals. Yeah, you can go about it in a more creative way, there, Donnie. But for today's purposes, we're we are frittering away an opportunity for a real advantage in the United States, and it's kind of there's a boomerang effect in a way that we're effing it up now. We're right now there are wind projects producing at a gigawatt hour production is very efficient. There's some in Massachusetts off the coast, some that reasonable people disagree with. They say, I'm I'm a fisherman. They f with my ability to reasonable argument. So you get together, you sit down at a table, you fight it out, and you find a compromise. Compromise is not stop all development of wind power, because that would be fucking stupid, because it's affordable. And oh, if you've been watching any of the news recently, you might have heard of some tension in the Middle East. Do we want to be? Do we want to continue to wait for Vladimir Putin, UAE, KSA, Qatar, Oman, for the other countries? Well, yes, we produce. We are net energy exporters in the United States, but with the tremendous appetite for energy, until we get to that green energy part, we're going to need the fossil fuels. That's I'm not I have never advocated, nor will I ever, to say stop fossil fuel. No, it's not practical. That's not the world we live in. But what about being energy independent? What about being independent of foreign producers of energy? We've talked about that for a long time. And if it weren't clear before, the reasons for doing that, and this is national security. This is not, oh, save a, I was trying to I was going to make a snide comment about saving a dolphin in a tree. Both admirable goals. But it's good business. And from a national security point of view, right now, because of Donald Trump's absolutely inexcusable miscalculations and not developing a strategy going into the Middle East conflict, except for teaming up with Israel to do something. Iran, bad people, death to America, death to Israel. Not good slogans. I'm not buying those t-shirts. I understand they need to be dealt with, but they can be dealt with in a way that doesn't destroy or severely hamper the world's supply of energy, which means increasing our dependence on unreliable quote unquote allies. Bad idea. That's a national security briefing subject that everybody knew about going back decades. It's a known thing. No secrets. It was the same 10 years ago. It is more critical now, but it was true for Biden. It was true for Trump 1.0. They mishandled it. And back to the subject of today's podcast, right? Why did I use the word forsaken? Does that have for you a kind of a biblical flavor to the word forsaken is a delightful word. I'm not a poet, and I'm not a biblical scholar. But if you've learned one or two lessons about the Bible when your mom and dad forced you to go to class, or while you were getting confirmed, or whatever the freaking Catholics do to you, you know, Lord, why have you forsaken me? Right? Of course, it is that the Lord hasn't forsaken anyone. Humans probably have broken their solemn oath the other way around. We're not going to blame the big guy, whoever you're worshiping this week. Right? But Donald J. Trump is a podcast from months ago, right? Is the ultimate false prophet, right? He comes up with some justifications for why he does what he does at the time that he does, bathed in lies that are repeated over and over again as a justification. When we know, because it's pretty much transparent or entirely transparent, depending on whether you want to look or not, is everything is for corrupt intent. Everything that he's doing. Department of Defense, Department of State, right? Everything, energy, every single thing is corrupt intent. Why do they kneecap the green energy? Because he's being paid by the oil companies. And green energy companies, although the oil majors have divisions that work because they see the writing on the wall, just as the Saudis, the sovereign wealth funds invest in wind and solar. They've got, if you've not been to a desert or to the Middle East, they have a fair amount of wind and a fair amount of sun. So it would make sense, and it's efficient and it's affordable. It will eventually. There's the tipping point where, we're developing these green technologies, and are we, as I think the title was yesterday, biting off my nose to spite my face? Am I shooting myself in the proverbial in DJT's case? Are you shooting yourself in the pinga, right? Which you have to be a really good shot. Am I reducing people's dependence on the oil that I need to sell to bridge me to green energy? That's a valid macroeconomic debate and discussion. I'm all for it. I'm in. Count me in. I enjoy it. But what I have to live with each and every day, because I'm an American citizen, a taxpayer with friends that have children that are in the military. I do not have children that are in the military. I was, and won't. I mean, I'm not making choices for them, but that is not my current status. But you have to be thoughtful. People die in wars until we become a much more till we get a lot smarter, we will have armies, more drones, less people, but humans will die as we've lost uh, 7 and then 6 and whatever's happened today that I haven't caught up on yet. If Pete Hegseth has put any more people in harm's way unnecessarily and not protected them, put them in a hooch or in a not reinforced trailer park, trailer home to do a task that needs to be done. But you're putting them on the firing line in a shelter that won't withstand a pea shooter, a BB gun. So that's bad planning. That's no planning or bad planning. There isn't a third choice, and that's what it's written all over Hegseth's face every time that he's on the podium, and as he's banning cameras and reporters from the Pentagon because he doesn't want to hear or see bad news, we get more of the same. Right? What can we do about that? Midterm elections. The only power we have now without a conscience in the Republican Party, not one conscience amongst all of them to share. John Thune, still undefeated, undisputed, most handsome coward in all of Washington, John Thune. Lindsey Graham, way off his rocker. So far off his rocker that he's off the porch. Is he making decisions? No. Is he influencing DJT and the leadership, quote unquote, in the Pentagon or the White House? I doubt it, because Lindsey Graham has been an unreliable partner in peace, war, or in the bathroom for most of his life. Everybody knows that, particularly the people in South Carolina, but they can't quit him. That's the problem about no term limits. Is there comes a time when your senator or congressperson has been in office for so long, you're afraid of losing power. They're going to make you afraid. But without term limits, that's going to repeat itself. You say, "What, you're going to vote in this young kid that's never been a senator before?" John Ossoff's done pretty well. Look at the examples. I was commenting on Ossoff and James Tallarico earlier today. Would I trade some experience and influence? Influence now is a bad word because Trump has turned it into one. Would I barter away some of those assets for a morally bound and driven young person? They're a little white. I'm not a excuse me. There's a whole lot of white people giving white people a bad name right now. Tallarico and Ossoff are not representative of the larger community. Ossoff in Georgia. If you've not visited, Georgia is a fairly diverse state. But someone who is willing to lead from a morally solid foundation versus what we're dealing with now, all day, right? Give me all of them. I mean, look at what we've been, in the last few months. More than one of us, including the guy you're looking at, has started saying nice things about Marjorie Taylor Greene. So that's how bad things are. That's how dire it is, right? Marjorie is the normal one, and we've got Tucker, Tucker's kid, who is the assistant press secretary for J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance, if you took 2 Carlsons and a Vance and send them to Germany and ask them to campaign instead for the AFD, except for their deficiencies in language skills, they'd be right at home, right? White Christian nationalist extremist. I didn't say Nazi. Did you say Nazi? I did not say Nazi today. Or did I just not say it twice? This is these are very desperate times, right? But again, education. I understand one of the things that Trump played on in the election. He, besides talking about transgender males swimming against your daughters in the shallow end of the swimming pool, all that stuff. Yeah, that's not going to help us win or lose a war, I would imagine. But as he's railing against, the elites, Trump went to an Ivy League school. The vice president did. The Secretary of Defense also went to an Ivy League school. Marco Rubio, we'll call it Miami Ivy. He got his law degree at University of Miami or University of Florida or vice versa, undergrad Florida, those places, right? Pam Bondi, less so. I don't know where she's, somewhere in the middle of, maybe she was at Central Florida, University of Florida, second tier law school. I don't know. Second tier law school myself. So, yeah, I'm not being a snob about if you didn't go to an Ivy League school, you're not qualified to lead. That's not what I'm saying. I've never said that before. But to suggest that having the brightest people advising you, if you're on your own in the private residence of the White House, and what you're trying to engineer is how to evenly disperse the extra side of special sauce on your Big Mac, your butler can take care of you. You don't need a food science expert for that, right? You're not going to do it yourself because you're DJT, right? But if I'm sending sons and daughters of neighbors, of friends, if I'm responsible for making decisions that will send people that I know and love and respect into harm's way, the least I can do is assemble a team of the best qualified individuals to make sure that the strategy is such that they're most likely to be successful and come home alive. Is that unreasonable? I would say not. Right? And that's at every level. The energy thing, that's a different subject. Of course it applies to national security, because if China beats us on that or chips, then they have an advantage in the national security realm. What do we do to protect chips? We don't sell them, we don't allow China to buy the A+ chips. We keep those for ourselves. We allow them to buy, and then we take a cut on the A- chips. They buy bunches of them and they stack them and get increased performance out of them. Not a computer scientist or an engineer, but it's the information is available for all to read if you're into that reading thing. And then when the Chinese need to bolster the number of the most sophisticated or almost most sophisticated chips, and they need more, and there are controls on that, which there are very few remaining, they can buy them from the UAE, because we approved the sale of the most sophisticated chips to the UAE. And what they're doing is they're giving that technology to China so they can use it and try to develop better, Yahweh chips themselves, right? Because that's what the UAE does. Right? These are people that are in it for them. It's a marriage of convenience. Yeah, we have bases there, and that's cost them a whole bunch as far as the missiles, because we support Israel, and we that's not a criticism. We support Israel, and we fly our airplanes in and keep them in UAE. So Iran figures you're a legitimate target. UAE, Dubai, beautiful hotels, which not doing a lot for tourism in Dubai right now. Right? What does that have to do with expertise? Marco Rubio, a man who has served his country. Be careful, right? He has served the United States up till last year admirably as a U.S. senator from the formerly great state of Florida. Marco's a smart guy. He's been around. He came from parents that came from tough, scrappy circumstances, and worked their way up as uh, service industry employees, and took care of their kid and moved on. Cuban immigrants. Right? Marco was up until last year was a senator that was respected on both sides of the aisle. Right? As a guy that a guy you'd want to have a drink with. Right? Guy you'd want to share a meal in the cloistered Senate dining room. Right? What is it? Is it blind ambition? He wants to be the president so much he's willing to abase himself and throw his reputation down the drain for a game show host. It appears so. It's unfortunate. Is he? And he also holds three positions. Right? He's the Secretary of the State. He's the National Security Advisor. Key role right now, and he can't do both effectively. Nobody ever. Well, Henry Kissinger. No, Marco's not in Henry's league, not even in the neighborhood, not even in the hemisphere, right? On straight smarts. And he's also the national archivist or whatever that the other job that he has. They failed to fill a whole bunch of positions where there are some people that were dinged in committee because they were nut jobs or for whatever reason or for political purposes. Oh my, yeah, of course that happens. Every administration faces the same thing. But look at the people that the Department of Justice is hiring now. The Lindsay Halligans. You've heard the stories. They can't hire or retain the most qualified people because they're asking them to behave in a way that is contrary to the rules of professional responsibility every day. Ms. Pirro from D.C. failing to indict a ham sandwich or a Subway sandwich, and she gets up and screams about Jay Powell, and now he's cloaked in immunity, which isn't true, should be, because she doesn't even belong on the same city bus with Jay Powell. But she's there, whatever. She's just trying to do. She's licking boots for Trump, and that's all she can do. That's the limit of her skill set. Pam Bondi, the same thing. They have all decided that kissing ass is the most important role that they can play for the American people, the people that sign their paychecks. It's miserable, and you can't There are many things that folks can say and point back and say, well, in the Biden administration, you know, why, why didn't Joe Biden put Jeffrey Epstein? That's a whole nother podcast, because there is investigations. The cart coming. Does the cart come before or after the horse? And ongoing investigations and lots of other things. Could earlier Democratic administrations done more to put Jeffrey Epstein behind bars, or any of his associates, to bring the entire abuse infrastructure to light? Of course, people can always do more. I can do more. You can do more. I've got a four-legged assassin which I wish he would do more than he did when I watched him last time. But that's a different. That's biology. That's a different subject, different podcast. But what this means, and I'm going to close here, but we have the big issues, the 30,000-foot view on this subject matter, is throughout government, post-Trump election, firing black and brown people because they're black and brown people and women in positions of authority when they have tremendous experience. The dozing out of the remaining experts that were in government, and other firings, many from the DOJ, because they're asked to do things which are absolutely, legal term, batshit, to even, if you want to practice law long term in the district, you want to get hired by a big firm and get a big check before AI eats your entire profession, then you can't be thought of as a fucking idiot. That's in the rules of professional conduct, right? Don't be a fucking idiot. I didn't always follow that rule, but it's there. It's written down. It's in pencil. It's in pen. It's in crayon for Donald J. Trump. Right? But hiring people that are willing to break the rules to satisfy the commands of a game show host. What are we doing here? Right? Is that the life you want to live? In every agency, it's the same, right? We have idiots, DOJ, the ones that matter the most. State, again, I'm not talking shit about Mario. I've never had the pleasure of shaking Marco Rubio's hand, right? To be clear. I've known people, or know people, that have had the pleasure or displeasure of knowing him. That's fine. It's a small world. It's only in Miami for 30 years. You meet some people, right? I'm not disparaging his accomplishments or him. He as a human being. He's overwhelmed, and at the direction of DJT and the Stephen Millers and all those folks, he's running with a skeleton crew in we'll say, the third most important department in government, right? Whether you can pick your own, we can go out back and we can fight, right? But how about the Department of Defense, Department of Justice, and State? That's okay. There are other. I'm not picking on energy. I'm not picking on interior. I'm not disparaging Health and Human Services. Oh my God, guess who's home, right? That's RFK Jr., who's going to be the next one to go, we hope, right? And we won't make the mistake, I think, with Kristi Noem. We're like congratulating ourselves that somebody that didn't ever belong there in the first place, and once it was learned what she was doing, what she's doing to and with Mr. Lewandowski, not my business, right? It's repulsive. Just look at it and imagine, right? The parts of the face that don't move and the parts that do. It's kind of like me after chemo and radiation. The face doesn't work in the different, in the same way that it did. But I didn't have plastic surgery, nor will I. You might say, don't rule it out because it may not be you can do that too. And you can send that in a message if you care to, because I don't tear up all that frequently. So I'll be okay. Yeah. So DOJ, not the best of the best from the top down. And they're hollowed out. So they have mediocre people in half of the spots, and the other half are empty. That's not the exact math, but it's round numbers. Consider it that way because the people that are there are either handcuffed, scared, under duress. You need your paycheck. You need to work. You need your job. Your wife just had or husband just had a baby. You got a kid at home, right? You don't want to lose your job. You going out on the job market. You're a junior attorney at DOJ, right? You're an ADA for presidential fluffing, whatever position you're holding. Like shit, the job market right now looks tough. This whole AI thing. It seems to not be fake news. It's going to be harder to get a good job. So I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna mind my business. I'm gonna do what I'm told, collect a paycheck, and wait for the end of the administration. You can't argue with that. I mean, people do things for different reasons and different motivations, right? Now, will it eat at your soul that you're being asked to do things, especially going into the midterm elections, because there's going to be a lot of batshittery going on about vote counting, not counting, mail-in, non-mail-in, messages from Mars, messages from MTG, QAnon, all sorts of things around the votes and the legitimacy of the vote count, because there are very few things he can do. And as time goes on and this war goes on, and we haven't even talked for a while about World Cup, which is coming up. It's unfortunate. There's going to be big problems. Can you hold out? You're a junior attorney at a federal agency. Can you tough it out? Do you want to? Is the agency better? Is democracy better for you hanging in there and fighting the good fight to the extent that you can without being assaulted, which is a real risk, by Doge red plastic hat MAGA lunatics? That happens. People they're doxing, they're sending you pizza, but they're doing, there are greater dangers. There are Proud Boys that are not behaving in a proud way. There are real risks. Can you tough it out? But you know what I mean? Can you hang? Is it in your best interest as a professionally and as a parent, as a spouse or a partner? It's tough, but it will eat at you because the team that is supporting you is insufficiently trained and skilled to support you properly. So you're getting burnt out, like that young attorney who was reportedly MAGA aligned up in Minnesota, who bled her heart out to the court, just saying, yeah, sanction me, lock me up. I'll get a good night's sleep for the first time in a long time. Right? Hold me in contempt, please. Take my wife, please. Google it, kids. Yeah, so it's a lot of hard choices. But the final thing, and I guess it's like a drinking game. I wish, if I still drank, I would play a drinking game with you in this format. But maybe we'll We'll find a workaround, if not a reach around. What is the ultimate cost of purposefully shattering these institutions? That when, not if, when the Democratic administration returns to power, and I'm, initially when this, almost a year ago, I was a little more in the camp as like, F it, we'll put it back the way that it was. No. So from a strategically, that doesn't make any sense, right? From resources and other things. I don't want to give the lunatics a win. So see, we broke it into little pieces, and they put it back together, and now it's only 40% of what it used to be. So we won. No, what I'm talking about is take this opportunity. There are a lot of changes we have to make. We talked about some yesterday in pardon power. Really hard to make changes in that because there's so much of it is tied up in the Constitution. But you can fix things around. If you don't have the votes, you can fix things around the edges. But I would imagine that there will be an appetite, even among the scared, cowardly, timid members of the Republican Party that are lying naked on the floor upside down, waiting for Donald Trump to give them their next order, that eventually they will say, this is not why I got into government. Now, a lot of people are choosing not to run for re-election, and that's if you're going to be, I was going to say a B word, if you're going to be a spineless coward and refuse to represent the people that put you in Washington and pay your check, then you should resign. You shouldn't just say, I'm not going to run for re-election. You should go the fuck home. Right? That's what you should do. Because you don't deserve the paycheck, you don't deserve the title, you deserve to get out or get the F out. Right? But that isn't the way that it works. And again, it goes back to people have responsibilities and they behave differently for different purposes. But ultimately, if we look at a time weeks into a new administration, well, let's skip the champagne. Let's skip we won. Let's skip the celebrations, the long lunches, the weekend getaways with your wife or with somebody else's wife or husband or partner. Let's skip over that and get to work, right? Collective action will get us there. Collective action will be necessary on the other side. So how do we reconstruct the Department of Justice to be an institution, AI development alone in this year, in the time between now and when Trump is gone? Think about the advances in AI, the ability to work with far fewer people. This is no thanks to Meg. You can imagine these, Lindsey Graham and those. The guy's name I always blank on. He's either Tennessee or Kentucky, who's the guy that, when Kamala Harris was appointed, he was going, she's a DIA hire. I told you. And there's going to be a lot of them saying that we come back into power and we have to fix everything they broke. And they're like, if I told you once, I told you 1,000 times, the tax and spend liberals, look at them. Just look at them. I told you. They're going to start spending again just when we got government under control. No. You aided and abetted a pedophile for corrupt purposes, your corrupt purposes, Mr. Senator, and certainly the current president of the United States. So you aided and abetted in crimes against the American people, corruption. So you don't, whatever you want to say, if you don't stand up now, when things change, you're still in office. People, as we talked about before, they vote to retain you because they're scared of losing power if another candidate comes into office. I understand that. But when you stand up and say, my opinion on this particular, sit the fuck down. If you're not standing up now and saying no to corruption, no to pedophiles, no to a pedophile ring, no to defying a law that requires the disclosure of information about the aforementioned pedophile, if you're quiet on that, then your only title for the remainder of your term, your title is sit the fuck down. That's your title. And you're going to be hearing it a lot. So people will be connecting with you on a personal level, right? That's what you deserve. You're going to hear it. You deserve it. Wear it. Yeah, well, how can I represent if I stood up to Trump, then he would have primaried me. He would have primaried me, and I would have been out of office, and I would have been out of a job. What about my bourbon and branch water bills would be exorbitant? Exorbitant is not a word that's used because it's a multi-syllable word and it's confusing, right? Expensive. Fine. So any of these people, we have to, build back better. That was somebody else's slogan. But it's a legitimate thing. We have to rebuild organizations, cabinet positions, departments, agencies that are more efficient, taking into account the advances in technology. That's any business. Look at McKinsey's laying off. The different organizations that are the media organizations. Forget about it. That all has to happen. Not saying we're going back. No, we're entitled to go back to the way that it was. No, we're not. We're not entitled to shit. We're entitled to rolling up our sleeves and getting to work and make something that will endure, because the real risk, and the risk to business, and I'll get into this in one of my episodes of the new podcast on business AI and working. Right? Businesses can't plan if you're an unreliable partner. Businesses can't hire if you're an unreliable partner. Donald Trump is the poster child for unreliable partner. We can't do that once he's gone because it hurts government, business, law enforcement, national security, military readiness, et al. Right? It touches everything. So, yeah. Technology. I haven't even disparaged a single tech bro in this episode, which is maybe a record. Pleasure. Thank you. The wind didn't come up. The rain was only a sprinkle. It's 40s, so that's nice. It's not blowing 60 like it'll be in 12 hours. So I got lucky, and I got to visit for a few minutes with you nice people. And I'll look forward to an indoor version perhaps tomorrow. And send any questions, concerns, suggestions, tips on horses, tips on and my riddle. Nobody answered the riddle that I felt that I was trying to put forth yesterday when I was talking about a unifying theme between Melania and Melinda Gates. Now, I love and admire Melinda Gates. When I heard of her husband's behavior, with Epstein, connected to Putin, connected to Russian women who work doing different sorts of jobs than our ordinary, reporting W-2 income, right? And the fact that the delight of those unions spread further or farther than just than that one little short-term union, right? So in any case, thank you guys, and have a great day. And we'll do it all again tomorrow. Uh, uh, would be delighted if you would, send me, just even if you want to just send a name without a story or attribution or anything, as I'm just trying to read about, consequential civil rights leaders that aren't the marquee names. We all know about the good doctor and the good reverend, and John Lewis, and so many others. Yeah. So drop me a few names, and we'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you. Have a beautiful day, Red Sox, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.